Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Crowded Booth Live. Will Manis and Ralph Leary here on a Tuesday evening. Will, I'll just start it off with how was your tell the people how your golf went today.
Oh, man, we don't need to talk about that.
Not good at all. Just wipe it clean.
I am amateur in every sense of the word.
Ralph, for you, we went to the driving range yesterday. We haven't played golf in a hot minute, but I think the biggest thing for this is, and I'm not sure what Will is doing. Is Will praying? What is he doing?
I'm mimicking
you right here. I was like, I don't know what was going on. I don't know if you had a come to Jesus moment there for a second. But Ralph, for you, how's your golf game? Because it's getting summertime. Listen, we're gonna be playing a lot more.
Well, I'm hoping that I can hit my driver straight again. I'm starting to not hit straight anymore. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well with my wedges. I feel good with that. Putting's getting better. Iron and driving game is just not where it needs to be.
Yeah, the iron and driving game, that's important. I can putt and I can chip a little bit because of the Leary Invitational that we play. So that is all that.
Hey, you drive for show, you putt for dough.
Something like that. I almost hit that goose yesterday. So that's all I know. I came closest to the goose
yesterday.
Yeah, it was the only goal yesterday. But we do appreciate you tuning in. If you are watching and tuning in with us, make sure to like it, share it, and comment as well. Because we've got a fun show. Just two topics, really, with our adding in our question of the day. But the big thing for this is we want to be able to kind of really hone in on these two topics because they're big ones, especially with the sports that are local here. Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, it's a big week for the Falcons. They have a chance to, if they decide to change the course of this franchise for the next decade, that they decide to and kind of plant something in the future, or they can shore up what they have right now and try to make one last run with that course. So it'd be interesting to talk about that as well. But the biggest thing that we have talking about today is the question of the day. Will, I switched it up on you. If you could be a member of any TV sitcom family, which would it be? Ralph, I want to give it up to you and hand it to you first.
Golly, man, this is a tough one for me already. Actually, I'm the one who's messaging. I still don't know who I want to pick. So I'm going to switch to Will first.
Will, I can go first if you want me to. I'll go first.
I was playing on the first question, so I was like, okay, I know I want, but this one now I don't know.
So okay, it's not necessarily a family, so I may have to redo this. But mine is Seinfeld. I just would like to be, because they're close. They're like a family. I would just like to be like in that with them. And so that is such a good one. Will, for you, what would you go with?
Yeah, I would go with Seinfeld too. I'd love to be a Costanza, just to see how much headache I could give Frank Costanza.
Just the younger brother. Like the younger brother comes in the show in like season 4.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Ralph, all right, we've bid you some time. Will and I went with the same one. Which is a good one. For you, do you have an actual family that you want to be a part of? And what is that?
I'd say the Hex from the Middle. You ever watch that?
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a crazy family. That or is it the Goldenbergs or something like that?
The Goldbergs.
The Goldbergs. Yeah.
That one's just, they're both hilarious to me. It's just crazy.
See, I was waiting on Ralph to pull out like the Addams Family or something.
No, I had one in my mind. I was like, I can't say that here.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good one because the middle, obviously. Now, where are you going to fall in as the child? Are you going to be the youngest, like below Brick? Are you going to be, Axel? Like, are you going to be older than Axel?
I think I was going to be the oldest.
Oldest. So you're going to be above Axel. That's a great show. That's a great show. But that's a good question. Yeah. Wow. That's all you can say about that right there. That's a really, really good show. But I think if I had to go with another family, gosh, the Goldbergs was there in the back of my mind because that's an underrated show that I don't know if a lot of people have seen. A really good one. Will, do you have anyone that's strictly a family that you're like, this is the family that I would be going with?
It doesn't really fit because it was just husband and wife in the show. They didn't have any kids, but King of Queens with the son of Kevin James and Leah Remini.
Hey, and the guy who plays Frank Costanza would be your granddad.
Exactly.
So there you go. And I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. So perfect.
Jerry Stiller.
Yes.
Is it Jerry Stiller?
It's Ben Stiller's father. That we can say.
Is
that.
It Jerry?
Yeah.
I was thinking Arthur, but I think that's the name of his character in King of Queens.
I think it is. Man, so you got the common theme there. That's a good one.
I think I got one for Will that he didn't. I don't think he's ever seen the show probably before ever.
Okay.
The Clampets from the Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, the Clampets.
Yep. Beverly Hillbillies.
Look, everybody already thinks I'm the old man on the show. I couldn't date myself that much.
You're the old man on the show.
I act so old.
By far.
I act extremely old.
By far. Let's get into the conversation. We're going to talk about a little bit of a Braves baseball here because, guys, I want to set this up.
Old man.
Speaking of the old man, let's talk some Braves baseball because obviously there's been some bullpen woes. And I want to set you up with this, Will, because this is something you talked about before opening day. So talking to some people and kind of getting a gauge of what this bullpen wanted to do. Last year in the 60-game season, the rotation was a mess. All the injuries occurred, which sounds weird, at the beginning of the year in August and into September, all those injuries started to occur. The bullpen's depth was it was a deep bullpen. You had a lot of arms down there you could go to. Also, there were 2 more roster spots. You had 28 roster spots. Atlanta benefited because, and let's say I could probably count on my hand, and it's probably Max Fried every single time until Ian Anderson made the show, of how many times a Braves starter went past the 5th or 6th inning. It was very rare. So the bullpen was taxed with throwing 5 to 6 innings each and every night. Okay? Going to the offseason, Atlanta decides to not re-sign. The thought process behind that, Will, was the starting pitching was invested in. So they said, okay, we feel like the starting pitching coming back, they may have been able to go deeper. What we know now, that's not something that's happened. The starting pitching, once again, has had their trouble. And I would say not necessarily they're struggling. It's just their injuries. It's not like anyone's been absolutely horrible. Max Fried's had some struggles, hasn't looked like himself. But I think there was something bothering him already to begin with. But I think, it's just not what they thought. And you take on the fact the bullpen's not as deep. They've got some arms that they were betting on in an arm that I think he's a good arm in Jacob Webb. He hasn't been what they thought he was going to be. Nate Jones had a fantastic spring training, hasn't translated to the regular season. So, Will, I want to set you over this because you were worried about this, and I think that speaks to depth. The depth is not there in the bullpen, and now they're being asked to do the same thing when they were last season, pitched 5 to 6 innings. And even in a night like last night where Atlanta explodes for 4 runs in the first inning and ends up winning 8-7, the bullpen, dare I say, almost kind of gave the game away.
Yeah. You look at all the championship-winning teams, they have deep bullpens. And a lot of them, they have great starting pitching. Look at the Dodgers. Won the World Series last year, obviously. They had the best rotation in baseball and a top 3 bullpen in the league. In the team they played, the Rays, same thing. They had a top rotation, more top-heavy than the Dodgers, not as deep, but they had a deep bullpen. The Braves had that bullpen depth. That's part of the reason why they were 1 game away from playing in the World Series. So even if the starting pitching would have done what they were expected so far this year, I was still concerned because – like you said, they're betting on arms. They bet on Will Smith. They invested a lot of money in him. I get it. But you got the guy, Mark Melancon, who's been the closer the last 2 seasons. Kind of took back the closer role from Will Smith last year, which 2020 was a weird year for Will Smith on top of being a weird year for everybody else. But you let him walk for pennies on the dollar. $3 million I think he got from San Diego. You tell me the Braves didn't have $3 million to bring back their closer? And you say the rotation – was invested in. I would say kinda. It was definitely invested in with Charlie Morton, and he's been pretty solid. I think he's done everything the Braves expect him to do. But then the other guy, Drew Smiley, I don't think he was really going to be a rotation guy, maybe at least for April, until Soroka came back, and he hasn't been very good. And he's another guy coming off a career year. Braves gave him what I thought was too much money. Was it $10 million, I think? $11 million. A lot more than if I was the GM and if I was handling the Braves finances, I wouldn't have gave him that much. Coming off a career year as a reliever. So bullpen depth, I saw it in the offseason that it was going to be a problem. It's shown to be a problem in April. But, I do hope that they correct it. Not just I hope they prove me wrong, because I don't want the Braves to lose games so I can keep looking right. But, it's turned around for someone. Will Smith is starting to find his groove and pitch well. He got the save last night. Sean Newcomb, but you got Will Smith getting better. You got guys like Sean Newcomb that haven't pitched as well. A.J. Minter pitched last night. He coming back from injury. And you said Jacob Webb. So, hopefully these younger arms can get things going and lengthen out that bullpen.
Yeah, and you spoke a name in Sean Newcomb, who unfortunately is sidelined right now. And one of the tough things about it, it's not like he's placed on the 10-day or 60-day IL where when he's going to come back. It was contract tracing with COVID, so you don't know necessarily when he's going to come back. He could come back tonight, tomorrow, or 2 weeks from now. But Newcomb was a guy who was a strikeout machine. I mean, this guy was striking people out on some deadly pitches. Will, you and I have talked about it. I think he really wants to be a starter. I think if he wants to stick with the Braves necessarily and compete with Atlanta, he's going to be better utilized as an arm. Now, if a team like the Orioles were able to go get him, then they would probably try him out as a starter because they're desperate for that. But Atlanta, he's a perfect fit right now for the bullpen, and he was playing well until he was sidelined.
I think he could work his way back into the rotation, especially if guys like Smiley continue to struggle. They just kind of swapped him. But while Newcomb's working in relief, he's got to find a third pitch. He's really a fastball, curveball guy. And be a starting pitcher in the big leagues, you really need 3 pitches, whether that's a changeup, a cutter, slider, even a 2-seam fastball, just something different. He's got to find something, and he hasn't had it yet.
And Ralph, one of the big key parts of this bullpen, who's expected arguably to be maybe by some the best bullpen arm they had coming this season, is hurt. And Chris Martin, he can't, it's seemingly for Chris Martin. I hate it because the guy is 6'5". He throws a hard sinker. He's devastating. He might be 6. I mean, he's a big guy. But when the Braves have needed him the most, he's been injured. 2 years ago in the playoffs against St. Louis, he gets hurt in the Dodgers, or in the postseason. He doesn't get to pitch against the Dodgers, which would have been a big beneficiary, a big right-hander that could throw to some of those right-handed bats. But Ralph, I mean, Chris Martin exits. We see a guy I know that you like in Tyler Matzik. Perfect example. He gets through the first inning last night. Brilliant. The second inning is some of the trouble. And I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because, Ralph, they don't have that depth, Snicker is being faced with a task. It's not his fault. He can only play with the cards that he has dealt. He's having to use some of these guys more and more. And as those appearances get up, they're going to have to find somebody else to go to in tough situations.
Well, you really rely on your starting rotation to at least carry those 5 or 6 innings, like you said, where you have to go to Tomlin. If a starter can't get it through the first 2-3 innings, you have to go Tomlin. He's like to eat innings, and some of these guys are having to eat innings. Having Chris Martin out is killing them, honestly. Him and Newcomb both. I mean, both really hard throwers, and I feel like that's the main thing on the bullpen these days. If you look at every bullpen pitcher these days, it's throwing 100 miles an hour. It feels like I was talking to my dad a few weeks ago. Like the whole Dodgers rotation and bullpen, they were throwing 100. It felt like. Every single pitcher could throw it hard and had a nasty breaking ball, and that's just how it is these days. Baseball is changing every year. It's gonna keep changing. Some new's gonna come next year. Something it's just gonna be different. So you just gotta keep working with that. I know people are blaming Brian Snitker for everything he does. It's not his fault. I mean, he's gonna make a call that his best judgment. He'll ask his other managers on the bench with him. Hey, I'm going to do this. If you have anything wrong with it, let me know. But if Tyler Bassett comes out there and he gets roughed up, that's not on Snitker. It's not on Matson. He had a rough outing. It happens. It's baseball. So it's gonna be okay. I mean, it's early in the season. They're gonna work some things out. They'll change the bullpen around. They might add someone to the bullpen. They might bring someone from AAA. I mean, look, Tukey hasn't even played this year. He's still hurt. So when Tukey gets back, that's another arm we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah, and Tukey, I mean, you talk about a guy who's got 2+ pitches right there. I mean, he's got a great curveball and a great fastball that could be utilized in the bullpen. You talked about, and I want to preface this because we have some people who watch the show who know that Will is definitely of the character of he loves these certain players and he's infatuated with them. One of them, I understand maybe why he's not at the major league level all the time. The other one, Will, I'm completely on your side, and Luke Jackson. This is the thing that people don't understand. And it was put perfectly. You and I were talking about it, and so I want to say this.
I wish I was wearing the shirt right now. It'd be the perfect time for the shirt.
It'd be the perfect time.
Luke Jackson is an elite reliever.
But I'm going to read you some stats. So Luke Jackson, and I know people don't love ERA, but he's got a 1.29 ERA. Listen, if you don't give up runs, that's fine. But the thing is about Luke Jackson is Eric O'Flaherty on the 755 podcast. You should definitely go check it out. It's a fantastic podcast. He said this, and Will, you agreed with me last night when I told you this. Luke Jackson is the type of reliever. When he inherits runners, that's going to be a mistake. Now, I'm not saying that that's a good thing. Like, okay, we'll just use him when he doesn't inherit runners. At some point, you got to be good in that category. And I would say he's not horrible in that category. Just typically he struggles when that happens. But if you give him a clean inning, he's going to strike out 2, he's going to walk 2, and he's going to get a ground out. That's what happens. Yep. It's not. No one's asking him to be Mariano Rivera, Billy Wagner, Trevor Hoffman, to go out there and just blow it past guys. Luke Jackson's got the stuff. He's got a plus fastball and one of the deadliest breaking balls. I think that honestly, it's got to be one of the best breaking balls in the National League out of a reliever. I mean, it's devastating. And when he's on, he's on. So you talk about a guy in Luke Jackson. I feel like he's a guy who's going to see 2 to 3 years ago, Will, we saw him have that high leverage role. You can't throw Will Smith out there every single time because come June, he's going to be gassed. Luke Jackson's going to have to be tasked with some of those opportunities now to say, hey, we need you in high leverage situations. Really as a right-hander until Chris Martin gets back, because what other right are you going to throw out there? Nate Jones has not pitched very well. You can't – I mean, I like Jacob Webb. He's got great stuff, but he hasn't been the same since he tore his UCL and had Tommy John. So, I mean, this is your moment to shine, Will. You love Luke Jackson. He's shown that he can do this in these situations, and right now the Braves really need him to step up and be a high-leverage guy.
Yeah, the 2019 Braves relied on 2 players that everybody hates to win the division. In the first half, that was Luke Jackson. Snitker ran everybody but Luke Jackson out there the first 6-7 weeks of the season to try to close the ball game. Nobody could do it. He runs Luke Jackson out there, and I think he was like 9 for 9 or 10 for 11 or something in save situations from June until the All-Star break. He was incredible in that role. I felt like, he's one of those relievers that is made for the closer role. He's not going to be good in any other role. But, there's baseball people working for the Braves. Alex Anthopoulos, a lot smarter than me, knew that he probably couldn't sustain that, and he probably couldn't. That's why he went out, got Mark Melanson, Chris Martin, made all those moves at the deadline to strengthen the bullpen. But I'm with you 100%. Luke Jackson will get to close games this year. He should. He should. If I'm running the team, he'd be doing it right now.
Yeah.
Because exactly, when you're closing games, you get a clean inning. You mentioned what Eric O'Flaherty said. I agree 100%. Give him a clean inning, and he's not going to let runs score. I don't care how many runners you let on base. If they don't touch home plate, you did your job.
Yeah. Well, your ability and a big part of a bounce back mentality for a reliever is to, if you give up a double, if you really can show, hey, I'm not worried about that guy at second base, I'm going to get the guy out. That's a huge thing. Leslie Lear with a comment. Chris Martin is actually 6'8", so that makes it even bigger. And when he comes back, you got to feel like everything's going to start to kind of fall back in order with this bullpen. It could be better. But, Will, I do agree with you. The depth is not there. They were banking on a guy in Nate Jones. And listen, you can't fault the front office necessarily if they're thinking Nate Jones was going to be decent because he came out. He did. I mean, they weren't expecting to be all-star level material, but there are some arms out there. And I'll say this, the big thing that everyone's commenting under the Braves Twitter accounts is, well, sign Shane Green. And, Will, what did you tell me the other day? There's 29 other ball clubs that haven't done the same thing.
There's 30 Major League Baseball teams, and I think there's like 18 in Japan. None of them have signed Shane Green. So either he's valuing himself too high or there's something wrong with him because Shane Green's sitting at home on the couch. It's not like he's pitching for somebody else. And I got one thing on Nate Jones. At this point, just cut him. Yeah. Find somebody else because it's like he was a guy that was thrown in the mid-90s a few years ago, and he doesn't have that velocity anymore. His ball's not moving as much.
or it moves too much in the dirt, and that's how the Yankees beat the Braves last Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. When they signed Nate Jones, I was like, oh, okay, he had a couple good years with Chicago. Maybe he could be decent for the Braves, but he has been a disaster the first 3 weeks. Not saying he can't turn it around, but he has just been a disaster so far.
We're going to talk about some panic time, but I guess I would like to say this, guys. A big help for this pitching staff is that the Braves can score some runs. They did that against Chicago last night. They're playing right now. But I want to talk about this because it goes two ways. When a team is hitting like the Braves were last year, man, that takes a ton of pressure off your pitching staff. The bullpen can go out there, and especially for those young guys. Now you put a guys like Ralph said a couple weeks ago, Huascar Ynoa, who has been to me, he's been the most impressive, I would say the most impressive person maybe we didn't think of coming into the season, because obviously Ronald Acuna, everyone knew he's going to be good. But, but I think when you look at this, the offense shows life last night. Guys, and Ralph, that shows the potential that this offense, they can do this. It's just a matter of time before this offense gets the swing of the bat. I want to read off some stats because I want people to hear this, and then I want people to realize it's the game of baseball, okay? Ronald Acuna, he's still batting at a 356 clip. I don't even know if the guy's barely gotten a hit since he came back, though. That's going to be, that's a big thing. Freeman, 218. Ozzie, 169. Listen, it's going to be okay. Freeman is an interesting case, guys. And if for the people who love sabermetrics and they love to kind of go down into the, down into the depths of what we're talking about of sabermetrics, Freeman has his OPS, which is for people who maybe not know, there may be some people watching who don't know, is your on-base percentage plus your slugging. It's at 839. He sits typically around 940. So he's where he is. But I'll go to this, and I don't want to confuse too many people because I don't love sabermetrics, but he's the beneficiary of some bad luck. He's teed off some balls that have been right at people. They're starting to find, especially one that found the chop house.
What's his BABIP?
His BABIP. I don't. I got it right here.
On balls in play.
His batting is 183.
Yeah, that is some horrible luck.
So you got to believe, and it's one of those things. In about a 2 or 3 week span, those balls are going to start hitting the gaps. We're going to see the Freddie Freeman we know. A couple other BABIPs, Ozzie Albies, who's still hitting the ball hard, 158. That guy's hit some rockets, especially since he came back from his injury with getting hit the other night.
The other night when Snitker first shuffled the lineup and he stuck with it, I said, Ozzie batting cleanup? What's that about? But he's hitting the ball hard. He's seeing it well right now. They're just not falling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's a big thing with Atlanta. I mean, you want to shuffle the lineup. You want to get some of these guys started. And the thing about Marcell Ozuna, this is a guy who in 2019 batted 241. Listen, he may bat 250, but if he hits 25 to 30 home runs, then you can live with that. And what we talked about with Austin Riley, he looked like he was seeing the baseball better, back-to-back games with home runs. You get him started. So, guys, that kind of brings me into what I'm talking about. He plays
so good at home. He sees the ball so much better at home than he does on the road.
And in the bandbox that is Yankee Stadium, where you can poke a fly ball out and that home run there. But this is kind of where we're gonna end our Braves conversation. We'll go to commercial, and then I know Ronald, you're watching, so we're gonna get into some NFL talk as well. But when is panic time for the Braves? Well, some fans have already thrown up the white flag. This team's terrible. I'm revoking my season tickets. This is horrible. Okay, listen, if you're doing that, you need to go out and walk in the park, and you just need to do something else, because obviously you've either never watched the game of baseball, you don't understand it, or you're just a troll that sits in your mother's basement and just sips on Capri Suns all day and just sits in front of Twitter with no actual logo. It's just some logo on your Twitter app. I say all that to say, the panic time of the Braves, Freddie Freeman said this, Snickers said this, this is my rule of thumb, Memorial Day, June 1st. If Atlanta is 10 games under 500 and 7.5 out, okay, some changes need to be made, some roster changes to be made. But you don't know what you have in a club really until maybe a full month and a half, 2 months into a season, because like you said, Ronald Acuna started off hot. This guy could be batting 301 in June, okay? He's not going to bat 445 the whole season. On the flip side, I don't think he's going to do it. Nate Jones could show for the next 2 weeks he's the best reliever on the Braves team. You just don't know until you get to a season. You can't make any rash decisions. And so, Ralph, I'll start off with you. When is your panic time? Does it kind of line up for that? Or, I guess mine is Memorial Day and June 1st. If you're still struggling then maybe let's make some personnel changes.
Honestly, it's probably a week or two before the All-Star break. Now if you're 15 games out of the All-Star break, you really got to work on something. But if you're sitting there about 6 games out, right, the week before All-Star break, that's when you need to really just giddy up and figure something out and change everything. Honestly, I think it's fine. I don't really look at the standings until mid July. Honestly, I just don't feel like it's necessary because you still have 2 months of baseball left. So anything can happen. Like you said, Nate Jones can come out tomorrow or tonight if he comes in tonight and be the best reliever in baseball. You don't know. It's just it's so early in the season. I think Freddie said it best on Sunday. We have 140 games left. It's not last year where we had 60 games or we'd be sweating right now because they're 10 and 12 and you're almost halfway through the season. So now you have a full slate of games. You'll play doubleheader games, which I'm kind of not wanting to play ever again for the Braves because but they'll turn it around. It's still early in the year. A lot of guys are coming back, so it'll be okay.
Yeah, it'll be okay. Ralph goes with before the All-Star break or before the trade deadline. Was it All-Star break or trade deadline?
All-Star break.
All-Star break. I think that's a good measurement. It's early July. It's a little bit later than mine was. For you, when is time to say, and I'm not saying let's don't call somebody up. I'm saying when Alex Anthopoulos says, okay, we can't survive with this certain player playing this position anymore. We've got to go get somebody else. When is that time to press the panic button for Atlanta, in your opinion?
Middle of June. The middle of June.
We're all sitting kind of in the same area.
Yeah. What was the Nationals a couple years ago? What did they always put out? They were the best team in baseball since like May 29th or something.
They were horrible. They were absolutely horrible until June 1st, until Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah. And then they won the World Series.
Yeah.
So,
and listen,
we're sticking in the East.
The NL East is an interesting division because I think it's going to be these teams beating up on one another. But like you look around baseball, I mean, I don't want to say it can't happen. The Royals are not going to win the AL Central. I mean, it's a cool story. They may be able to have our playoffs.
Hey, I don't know. Hey, they hang around long enough. They go get some starting pitching.
Yeah, you don't know, but
I'm saying they have the offense to do it.
Okay, the great example. The Yankees are not going to finish dead last in the AL East. Like that's just not going to happen. I mean, it's just they'll at least finish third or second.
They'll pass the Orioles. They'll get ahead of the Orioles.
So I say all that to say it's going to be okay. Braves fans, take a deep breath. It's going to be all right. Put your Capri Suns down, get out and see the sunshine. And it's going to be all right. It's going to be completely
Stop reading Fangraphs.
Yeah, stop reading all the Fangraphs and just watch the game.
Stick to baseball reference.
Go to the game.
Yeah.
Go to the game. Hear how hard he hits the ball and stop relying on exit velo for it. Like Ralph and I were at a game. Pablo Sandoval hits one. I know how hard Pablo Sandoval hits the ball. I'll tell you one thing. Guillermo Heredia might be the center fielder for the rest of the season for Atlanta because that guy can absolutely rake. Can I just say that? Because Brian Snitker came out and said Christian Pache, he's kind of healthy now. He's all right. But they put an alternate site so he can work on some things because guys, he just wasn't hitting. I mean, it was bad. He just wasn't hitting. And I'm not saying he won't ever be able to hit, but he's obviously got to get some more time. He has never had a full season in AAA. He had 3/4 of a season in AA. So we'll see what happens there. But for right now, Guillermo Heredia, I mean, you put Guillermo out in center field, man. I mean, he doesn't have the strongest arm, but the guy can just flat out find a way to put the ball in play and do some damage. So we're going to talk about the Braves coming up at the season, continue that conversation. But obviously the big news happening around is the NFL draft. We're going to talk about specifically the Atlanta Falcons. Our Thursday, we're going to have our full mock draft coverage. So today is just going to be the Falcons and what they could possibly do at number 4, guys. I know we have we got a lot of differing opinions. I know I've had some people text me. We had some other things. So we're going to talk about that when we come back.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place. Fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
We're back here with the Crowded Booth. We thank you for tuning in and talking to us here today. Make sure to leave a comment. I know my man Ronald in the comments is really excited to talk about the NFL draft. So you got to stay with us all week, Ronald, to be able to get that. But the big question, guys, especially here in the state of Georgia, I'll preface it with saying this. The NFL is not as big here as people may think it is. And I've always hated that because I would have loved to grow up in a place like Cleveland or Pittsburgh where like there's diehard NFL fans. Here, it's college football. There's gonna be it's just that's the typical. But if you are a Falcons fan, and I think we could all say that. I don't know if I could say I'm a Falcons fan anymore after what they did to me a couple of years back. It was really rough. But I'll say this: the Falcons, whether or not whoever you want them to pick here, can we all agree this pick, whatever they decide to do, they'd go get a quarterback. They could change the next decade of what this franchise could look like. Obviously, Matt Ryan will go down as the greatest quarterback in Atlanta Falcons history. I don't know if that's a question. He's been fantastic over his career. But he's owed a lot of money over the next 2 seasons.
Hey, look, the Atlanta Falcons had a Heisman Trophy winner play for him, okay? You may not have known that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who was it, Will?
Pat Sullivan.
So Matt Ryan is the greatest quarterback to ever play for the Falcons at the NFL level. We'll give you that. At the NFL level.
All right.
It's okay. It's okay. Listen, we're not an Auburn fan page. I'll give you credit for this. We're not an Auburn fan page.
Yes, we are.
But
I commented and made sure we are.
The post today is popping off all day long. I don't know if you guys are looking at the views and the likes and comments we're getting, so that's good. But the Falcons have a chance here to change the course of the franchise. Matt Ryan is owed a ton of money over the next 2 seasons, so it's expected whoever is going to be selected, if it is a quarterback, would have to sit behind him for at least a year before they could even think about trading him maybe in that final contract year. So how we're going to attack this, I think, is I think it's because the big thing is we're going to go case by case. These are some of the players that Atlanta and the mock drafts have had them going to. Then all 3 of us are going to maybe give a dark horse candidate. And then we'll talk about what if Atlanta decides to trade back, who they could look after and go for. So I think, guys, we could all say first off, Atlanta needs defense. Mm-hmm. You know, they've had this offense that's been prolific. They had the offense last year that was everyone's first rounders, but you can't stop anybody. And it was like a wet paper bag. I mean, they just could not stop anybody. I mean, my grandmother could have, and she's watching. Grandma, you could have scored on them. I mean, the holes they were opening up on the offensive line against the defense was big enough for a Mack truck to run through. I mean, like it's just one of those things that the defense would always let down. Atlanta could score 35 points, but they were going to get beat 38-35. The problem is there's not a top-of-the-line defensive player that you feel comfortable taking at number 4. And I know we've all had this conversation, so let's go case by case first off. One of the big things Atlanta needs help at, and I know, Will, you kind of said it's sad they do because they've been drafting there a lot, but you feel like some of those guys are going to get older, they're going to get better. There's a talent at the top of the draft for Penei Sewell. He's been a hot pick so far for Atlanta at 4. To me, he's a safe bet. You also have Rashawn Slater that's kind of slated anywhere from no pun intended. He's kind of maybe going to be picked between like 7 and 12. For Atlanta, this is a safe pick. Penei Sewell is very athletic. You could kick him out to tackle, move Jake Matthews in at guard. You could put Sewell at guard. I want to get – what is your case for Atlanta taking Sewell other than just being a safe pick? Well, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bryce. I think Penei Sewell is the safest pick. Definitely probably the biggest need picking at 4 would be offensive line because, like you said, defense is lacking because a lot of the top defenders in this draft class opted out. They probably would have been top 10 picks had they just played in the fall. But Sewell, yeah, he has the looks of a generational talent at tackle.
Yeah, and he's got to look – he could be a franchise cornerstone. I think that's one of the big things that they would like to see. Ralph, for you, I know you like Penei Sewell. You like his footwork. I mean, when you go look at the tape of what he can do, he can block out in space. And I think that is something that is very, very, very – it's very important in today's game because we're seeing the schematics of how offenses are being run. It's not – I mean, this is not the Atlanta team that's going to turn around and hand it to Michael Turner so he can get 2 yards and fall down, okay? These teams are going to need to do these things. Sewell could be a pick that could shore up the offensive line. But if you do that, and I know I got a comment here already saying if we had a young quarterback, you're right. If you take Sewell, that means you're betting on the core that Atlanta has right now. So, Ralph, for you, is Sewell just the safest pick in this situation where you say, yep, we can take him. We know he's going to play on the offensive line for 5 to 10 years at least?
I mean, I don't disagree. He's a safe pick because you know what you're going to get out of him. I have one thing about him I don't really like. He has shorter arms than most average offensive tackles. Which I mean, if you know offensive linemen are, you need long arms for tackles because you're going to have those defenses in speed rushing. Get the arm on them. You know, you're going to save your quarterback a little bit. But he's got great footwork. I've said it 100 times, and I always say it. That really helps him get to those ends. He's strong. He's got that great first step, and Yeah, I mean, he can play both sides of the line. I think that's a really big thing to do for what's going on right now with the Falcons. And it's a safe pick. I wouldn't be mad that they took him. It's just a weird pick for them this year. So,
yeah, I think if you take Sewell, you go Sewell or quarterback, even if he's going to sit behind Matt Ryan for you, you're kind of committing to rebuilding this core. You're going to build around Sewell, or you're going to build around your quarterback that you take, even though he may not play. So, you're betting on the core. Yeah, kind of, sort of, but you take him, you're not really expecting to win a whole lot of games next year. I don't think.
You're completely right. And I think the dilemma Atlanta finds themselves in, they're picking at number 4. You don't really want to pick. The problem is that Atlanta's core players have so much money tied up to them. It's not like Atlanta can just hit a reset button, okay? They're going to either have to ride it out.
That's the other thing. They're really, like I said, they're going to score 35, 40 points a game.
Yeah, and I'll say this: we have some comments that are just that are in the box here, and I want to speak to that because it's not a core. Okay, well, it is a core because Matt Ryan is a former MVP. He's talented. If you don't get anyone for him to block, like if you don't give him anyone that can block for him, then yeah, it doesn't matter if you have Tom Brady. If he doesn't have an offensive line, you can't do anything. That's what people have to understand. This is not Madden. You can't just use or control the roster and have who you want. And I think that is the biggest thing that fans don't understand is you can't just do that. Okay, so with Matt Ryan, and Julio Jones, I will say this. I have zero problem with Atlanta trading Julio. Like that's completely okay to me. I love Julio. He's a generational talent. But he was a generational talent 2 to 3 years ago. He can't stay on the field. He can't stay on the field. You can't pay him that much money. I love Julio Jones. It's fantastic.
I kind of have a feeling 2020, a lot of him being off the field was by choice. Not because of injury, or especially toward the end of the year. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him because he knows he's got a few good years left in him. Falcons aren't doing anything. So why go out there and be double teamed and get beat up every game?
Yeah. And so if you draft Sewell, you're saying, okay, because, and Ralph, you correct me if I'm wrong, when you want to rebuild a team, you have to start from the inside out. You've got to establish your lines because you've got to have some type of franchise player. A great one that never got the opportunity was Joe Thomas in Cleveland. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He never got the opportunity, but that was what Cleveland did. When they were trying to build that, they went and got we need a tackle. Kansas City, Eric Fisher. That's who they got. And that's who they got to do that. So I think that you have to try to do that in order to make in order to make it seem feasible. Let's go to the second case because I know that we're going to have some things here. And we already got some firing off comments that we're just not even going to address. But the case for Kyle Pitts. Now, this heightens to me if Atlanta does take Julio Jones if Atlanta does trade Julio Jones away because you wouldn't want another offensive weapon. Kyle Pitts, guys, to me, I don't know in the world he's not a monster in the NFL. I mean, he's not going to put his hand – he's not a great blocker. But with his size, you're going to see him a lot in the slot, and Hayden Hurst may fulfill the role of putting his hand in the dirt, per se, as a tight end that's going to be on the edge of the line. So, Ralph, I'll start with you on this. Kyle Pitts is – to me, Kyle Pitts is the epitome of this unicorn-type player that if you get and you develop him right – and I don't want to say what the Patriots found in Rob Gronkowski, but Gronkowski changed the tight end position. He did. Kyle Pitts, in a different way, could change this position for Atlanta and add a dynamic weapon if they decide to go with him.
Well, I'd say Tony Gonzalez changed the tight end position just because of what he did in just general. But, yeah, Kyle Pitts, like you said, he's unreal. He's going to be a beast he's going to be a beast in the NFL. I don't think there's many corners that could cover him one-on-one. I wouldn't want to cover him one-on-one with his size. So I wouldn't be mad. It's like I said, it's a weird pick for the Falcons this year. Anywhere they go, it's okay with me. Kyle Pitts is a guy, if you're on first and 8, 1st and 9, and you want to throw a little corner route to the end zone, you're hitting Kyle Pitts in the corner if you're not having Julio on the team. He's a big physical tight end who's going to dominate in the NFL.
Yeah, he's big, he's physical, he can line up. He's also got great speed as well. Will, when you look at some of these things for you, how do you feel about Kyle Pitts? I mean, this is a guy, he dominated Florida in a good scheme that Dan Mullen had. I mean, Dan Mullen was able to call plays well for that offense this past year. It's enticing to sit there at number 4 and say we can add a guy like Kyle Pitts to this offense where I know I talked about, how the defense can't stop anybody, but golly, if you had Kyle Pitts' offense and the offensive line takes a step up in play that they have currently, man, that's a tough offense to really scheme against defensively.
I think Kyle Pitts is the most exciting option, obviously at number 4, because I don't think you go receiver. But taking Kyle Pitts, really opens up the possibility of trading Julio Jones, and you can use Julio to get back in the first round later. You can take a Christian Darrisaw, Rashawn Slater, a Landon Dickerson, even kind of maybe reach a little bit, get him in the first round. So you keep that offensive weapon, and you're going to add your offensive lineman later in the first round. I love Kyle Pitts. I think he's going to be an absolute monster. I think he's a Hall of Famer at the tight end position, but he's probably going to play. He's going to look like a wide receiver, obviously, because like you said, he's not going to put his hand in the dirt. But I mean, he would fit in well from the previous Falcons offense. I think he would fit in perfectly. And I think Arthur Smith is a plenty good offensive coach to kind of scheme around Kyle Pitts and add him into his game plan, and he would just dominate because he's stronger than corners and safeties, and he's faster than linebackers. I don't know who is going to cover him.
Yeah, it's going to create a potential matchup nightmare for some of these. I mean, Kyle Pitts would be a fantastic option there at 4 if Atlanta decides to go that way. Let's flip over to the quarterback option because Atlanta, seemingly, guys, we're talking about this, Trevor Lawrence is probably going to go number 1. I mean, I don't think if Jacksonville takes him number 1, he's terrible. I mean, for some reason, then I don't think you should feel bad because everyone in their right mind would probably take Lawrence number 1. But behind him, Zach Wilson is a very popular pick to go 2 or 3. Mac Jones is in there in the conversation at number 3 right now, and so kind of what it's been mocked. And Mac Jones could not get picked at 3. I would not mind Atlanta taking Mac Jones, but I say this to say kind of the 2 people that are commenting right there is Justin Fields. Obviously, the storyline I think would be a cool one from a media perspective. Justin Fields grew up 30 minutes away from what is now Mercedes-Benz Stadium. He would obviously go to Georgia, transfers out, and then comes back home to play for his hometown NFL team. Guys, Ralph, or Will, I'll start with you on this one because for Justin Fields, listen, the guy is probably one of the best athletes we've seen in recent years come out of the quarterback position. Is his whole skill set polished? Now, the next guy we're talking about, I think that the next guy we're talking about is a work in progress. For me, Justin Fields could benefit from a year sitting behind to really become the quarterback that I think everyone thinks that he can be.
Totally agree. I think Fields, he's not ready to start right away in the NFL and be, successful, like make the playoffs his first year. But you're right. I think he's a work in progress, and I think he's going to be a really good NFL quarterback. I think a lot of the criticism he's gotten over the recent days is unwarranted. I don't understand it because I think he's going to be really good. But it's like most quarterbacks that come into the NFL. It's all about the situation that you come into. Like recent easy example to me is Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold is a much better quarterback than he showed for the Jets. And I kind of feel like Fields, if he goes, near the top, maybe not Atlanta. Atlanta will be a good fit for him. But if he goes to, it wouldn't be Cincinnati. Or even if he goes 3 to San Francisco because they traded up. But if he goes later in the top 10, there's some situations that look murkier that would be a lot harder, a lot more of an uphill battle for him to get to not even an elite level, maybe just slot down from elite to be a really good NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Fields, he has the tools. I don't think anyone's going to question what the good Lord gave him. The guy's got all the tools in his toolbox to be successful. Ralph, you see this. The knock on him for some reason, and it's just lazy to me, is that he doesn't care or what all this kind of stuff. And they kind of knock Trevor Lawrence for this too. The guys care. I mean, he loves the game. But Justin Fields, to me, with the way quarterbacks are trending, now I'm not saying I don't think Justin Fields is going to go to the NFL, and I know Cam Newton, all this. I don't think he's going to be a guy that just is going to run quarterback draws. You know what I mean? I don't think that's going to happen. But Ralph, when you see what happens with Justin Fields and kind of quarterbacks of his mold per se, they can be figured out quickly because defenses are starting to adjust to this style of play in the NFL. How do you feel like Justin Fields could fit in Atlanta's system under Arthur Smith?
I don't like Justin Fields coming to Atlanta. I don't think he's what Arthur Smith wants. I think Arthur Smith wants to be a running style out of the backfield. I don't think he wants a running quarterback. You had Ryan Tannehill past 2 years in Tennessee. He was a play action quarterback, not really a run quarterback. He had Mariota was there first, but Fields got a great arm. He does. I don't think he fits in the offense that the Falcons are trying to develop this year. If they took Fields at 4, it's for the future, obviously. And then Arthur Smith's got plans that I don't even know about, and none of us know about. But it's something that you don't see very often in a quarterback with this great talent. And he's a freaking nature with his size, his speed. He can do everything. He went to the playoffs 2 years in a row with Ohio State, which is I know you're thinking like, well, that's not saying much. Big Ten's a weak conference or anything, but he's a talented quarterback. He plays full on every game you watch him. I think the comment he didn't care is just dumb. If he didn't care, he wouldn't be playing right now. So,
yeah, he wouldn't be playing. He wouldn't care about it. And I like what you said, Ralph. This is a guy who has the opportunity. And we know, too, for quarterbacks, it's all about getting in the right system. And we can sit here and talk about this, but if you don't get in the right system, then 2 years you're just fizzled out. It doesn't matter how good you were in college. And it's just, for some reason, that's just kind of how it is. It has to be the perfect fit. So I think that's important. Let's go to the next one. Probably the one that I'm least in the camp of is for Trey Lance right here at this position. Trey Lance to me is a massive work in progress, guys. I think when you see him in a T-shirt and shorts, okay, when you see him in T-shirt and shorts, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy can make every throw. Okay, well, everybody who's good can make every single throw in T-shirt shorts. When you put the pads on and you're going against elite level competition, I don't want to knock FCS. There's been some fantastic players that have come out of the FCS ranks, the Division II, every single rank. But with Trey Lance and the competition, we haven't seen him go up against the best of the best. Now, North Dakota State, arguably, guys, would be a bowl eligible team in the FBS. You know what I'm saying? Like they are that good of a program, especially under their previous head coach. But Ralph, I'll start with you on this because we started with Will last time. With Trey Lance and what he has to offer, it would be a work in progress. To me, it would be a reach at number 4, I feel like. What are your thoughts on if Atlanta just decides? Because, look, they've looked at him twice. He's had 2 pro day workouts because there has been no official combine. What are your thoughts on if Atlanta's thinking about Trey Lance? It would be something where, to me, he'd need some years under the tutelage of Matt Ryan and something to kind of learn this new style of offense.
Yeah, I like Trey Lance's size also. Just like Fields, I think they're close to the same player. Obviously, Fields probably a few steps above. He's played a lot better talent. But Trey Lance is something, he might surprise you. I like Trey Lance because he's got a great talent ahead of him. He's got a good future, I feel like. He's going to need that work under Matt Ryan. He needs to be under a great QB coach or behind a great quarterback. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes when he came in the league. I said he ain't going to play his first year. He'll get 1 year behind Alex Smith, learn a lot, and become a Super Bowl playing quarterback next year. And he did. So Trey Lance is going to be the same. I feel like he's the same way. I'm not going to compare him to Patrick Mahomes. That's not fair to anyone because Mahomes is a different breed. But Trey Lance he's got a good future ahead of him if he gets the right team with the right quarterback or quarterback coach, and if he gets a talented receiving core, he'll make some plays and he'll surprise a lot of people. You're muted, Bryce.
I like what you said, Ralph, because you're completely right in the fact if he gets in the right system. Will, is that how you feel about Trey Lance? Because he's talented. I'm not saying the kid's not talented, but he's got to get under – Patrick Mahomes, let's just be honest. In college, he was a gunslinger. Mm-hmm. The Texas Tech version of Patrick Mahomes is very different from the Patrick Mahomes that we see now because you know why? Andy Reid had the system and allowed him to groom, and Andy Reid's a great quarterbacks coach. And I'm not saying Atlanta may not have that. We don't know. But, Will, for you, what do you think about Trey Lance, maybe just as a prospect in general, maybe not necessarily for the Falcons? I think he could be a starter somewhere, maybe even better than that, but he's got to get in that right system.
Yeah, well, first off, I just want to say I don't love the system term, especially for a guy coming out of college. It's a guy like Trey Lance who is going to sit behind a quarterback or he's going to be groomed by a quarterback coach. And they're going to mold him into that system where they're going to mold the system to fit him. And Trey Lance is a big wild card. He's going to need time with an NFL team I think so they can get to know him better because, like you said, he played FCS level at North Dakota State, who was the FCS power. So he wasn't playing the best of the best. He was part of the best of the best. So, I think he's a huge wild card. I think Atlanta would be good for him. It'd be a good fit. It'd be behind Matt Ryan, like y'all have said. Matt Ryan can groom him, can teach him the NFL game, and he could be a good quarterback. I just don't know a ton about him because I haven't seen him play.
Yeah, we haven't been able to really see him play, so it's unfair to give that judgment. And I like what you said. I mean, they're going to – if you take him, hopefully, you're going to say, listen, here's our quarterback. We've got to fit to him. You know who I think has done that perfectly? Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. He has built the offense around – and he's an offensive genius, but when he was in Minnesota, he did great. He's built offense around Baker Mayfield's strengths, and that is what allowed them to be so successful last year and make it deeper in the playoffs. So we've gone through some of the cases we've seen. Guys, and I'll ask you this quickly. Will, for you, who's a dark horse at number 4? Who maybe we're not seeing a lot of what Atlanta could go to. I mean, there's always there's always the Jamar Chase. Let's add another weapon. That's kind of how I felt when they added Calvin Ridley. I was like, wait, what? Calvin Ridley's coming to Atlanta? But, Will, for who's a dark horse we're not really thinking about for Atlanta at pick number 4? We're going to talk about trade back options later.
I'm going to go Micah Parsons, linebacker out of Penn State. We know the Falcons need defense. He's a guy that early in the college season was projected top 5, top 10. He slid back because he opted out, and we've seen other players play and elevate their draft stock. He's a guy with great speed at the linebacker position, can really play sideline to sideline. And I think he's the type of middle linebacker that can grow into a captain of a defense.
Yeah, I like that one. If we would have saw him play, Will, I've seen some mocks taken as late as 26 because he's better than that. He's better than that. We didn't get that final year of tape, and that might hold him back. Ralph, for you, maybe who's a dark horse candidate we're not thinking about right now for Atlanta ticket 4 that maybe this front office has up their sleeve, thinking they can maybe really reach somewhere, and in 10 years it looks really good.
Well, I'm going to go the same position with Will. I'm going to use the linebacker of Notre Dame. I can't pronounce his name. I'm not going to try to butcher it. But if you know what I'm talking about, thank you, because it's impossible.
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
Perfect. Thank you, Wilbur. I really like him. I think he's one of the smarter players that you'll see in the draft. I really like how he played this past year. It was overlooked by how good Notre Dame's offense was, I felt like, this year. Mm-hmm. He had a great national in a semifinal game against Alabama. It was obviously overlooked because of how bad they got beat, but he's a hard-hitting linebacker, and he would go great with Deion Jones, who could fly around. He could cover those tight ends and receivers a little bit. But Jeremiah, he's going to go out there and he's going to hit you right in the mouth if you run it in the middle. And I think that's something the Falcons could use on defense. I know he's slated to be like the second linebacker taking the draft behind Parsons, maybe first, depending on who gets him. I would not be mad they took him at 4, though. It's definitely a dark horse pick.
I'm going to roll with another defensive player because I was going to give mine, but this will be my trade back option. Kwity Paye, the linebacker out of Michigan. He's a guy who he's very physical. We've talked about Atlanta needs someone to really complement. They need someone to complement Deion Jones. Deion Jones, to me, is a franchise talent. I know we had some people talking about core. You got some core members of the defense right now. You have Deion Jones and the defensive tackle Grady Jarrett, which if there's not a guy named Aaron Donald, Grady Jarrett gets a little more notoriety across the league, in my opinion. So I think Kwity Paye is a guy who, if he's sitting – I shouldn't say at 4 because that to me that's just a reach. And these are just reaches we're talking about. These are not – we don't really think they're going to go at 4, but just some options if Atlanta was like a pick 8, which is what we're talking about next. Trade options, guys. And what are some trade options for Atlanta? I'll go first on this one. I would not mind seeing Atlanta, and we'll go more in depth with our mock draft. Maybe we agree on some of these on Thursday. I wouldn't mind seeing Atlanta slide back to a 10 to 12 range. And to me, and this is what some people said, pick up the best pure man-to-man corner in J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn, by many, is relegated as the best man-to-man coverage corner. I think he's got a lot of talent. To me, he has a higher upside than Patrick Surtain. I think Surtain was fantastic in his career, but what you could deal with at the NFL level with his athleticism is a little bit higher. I wouldn't mind seeing J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain. There's a couple other names that are sitting there. I think you kind of see Rashawn Slater. Well, I know that was one that you really liked. If you're picking back there, you want to take an offensive lineman. Slater's, to me, is a little bit more powerful and physical than maybe Sewell is. But, Will, for you, I'll go first. What is a trade-back option for Atlanta, and maybe who are they taking? You don't have to give us the actual trade or anything like that, but who, if Atlanta does trade back into the teens or something like that, who could you see him taking?
Yeah, so I'm going to base this off the Falcons taking Kyle Pitts at 4, like I said earlier. Use Julio Jones to get back into the first round. And, I don't know which teams off the top of my head really need a receiver. I could see New England at 15. But, gosh, could you imagine Julio Jones on the Patriots? I know they're not the Patriots of old. They're not the Patriots of old. But still, Julio Jones on the Patriots just doesn't feel right. But 15, you're in that range. I think you go Rashawn Slater, Christian Darrisaw. On Thursday, I'll have a better idea of the other teams picking later that could use a receiver that would rather use their first-round pick for Julio Jones than to pick a rookie. But, yeah, the teens, I think you go offensive line somewhere in the teens.
Yeah, I think you could go with a couple options. It would also give Atlanta the opportunity to get back into that first round. I feel like Atlanta could get a late first-round pick for at least Julio Jones. Mid to late.
It would also keep the tradition of taking an offensive lineman in the teens. It's an Atlanta tradition.
Atlanta tradition. The offensive lineman out of Iowa. Give me one who's a senior graduating. Boston College, who cares? I mean, it doesn't even matter. Ralph, for you, trade back options. I know that you were high on a certain running back from Alabama.
I'm not
taking a running back in the first round is very it's going to happen this year, I think. Somebody's going to take him. But for you,
running backs are that good. So.
But for you, Ralph, who you trading back? Who you getting?
That was a hot take.
I'm not going to I'm not going with Najee Harris. As much as I would want to, I think that's not really a pick I think I would like for him to do. Trayvon Merrick from TCU to safety. I think he is a exact replica of what Keanu Neal was for Atlanta. When they drafted him, he's a hard-hitting safety, great cover playmaker guy. I saw him play a little bit this past year. I think he is, something of a captain kind of defensive back. I think he can lead all guys from back there. And something I'm just reading right now, he was voted as the MVP of their team in 2018. I mean, I know it's not saying much because it's just your teammates, but it's something to say if you're voted your MVP of your own team, because that means a lot of respect to your players. So,
Yeah, and you talked about, he is athletic. He has ball hawk type of mentality. I think Atlanta could receive well because we haven't really talked about it. I talked about J.C. Horn. Obviously, they have A.J. Terrell, who went under baptism by fire this past season. I think that he'll improve. Hopefully, you can only hope a guy like that can improve with his talent. The secondary is decimated, guys. Atlanta has nothing in their back seven. They have nothing. The front seven, you feel like, okay, we could get by some of these things. I think the big thing for them is they're going to have to find, because you had Keanu Neal, he was a talent, but he couldn't stay healthy. Unfortunately, I think he would have been fantastic. To me, he would have been a big part of Atlanta's defensive core if he could have stayed healthy. So I think that's interesting to see trade options for Atlanta going back. And maybe you pick up a piece in the third or fourth. You trade back out of 4, you go to 17, 18, and you can get maybe a fourth rounder, a fifth rounder added in. Build up that draft capital. I think that would be something that wouldn't be a bad idea for Atlanta. But, guys, we're going to go full in-depth, all 32 picks in the first round on Thursday. It's going to be a ton of fun. I'm sure we've already had some comments firing off about what people think. Parker, I see you in the comments. We appreciate you tuning in as well. I want to get kind of a final thoughts. I don't have it labeled final thoughts, but the Falcons are listening to offers on Julio Jones. To me, it makes more sense than trading Matt Ryan because, as some people may not understand, Matt Ryan is commanding way too much money. No one's going to go out and get a 36-year-old quarterback for what we're paying him right now. So for Julio Jones, he's 32. He's had some injury troubles, but you've got to feel like a team might take a bite on him at some point. What are your guys' thoughts? We talked about some cases, the case for Kyle Pitts, how that would be affected if Atlanta did indeed go and trade Julio Jones. But, are you okay? You feel like trading Julio Jones is something they should do, Ralph? I'll start with you.
No, I don't. I'm not going to sit here and say that having not having Julio last year was the reason why they're bad. We know what was wrong last year. I think Julio still got it in him. I really do. Trading for him, it wouldn't hurt my feelings. I'm not going to sit here and cry about it if he gets traded. I'll be just fine.
Well, I hope you don't cry. But
Sorry, my light's just dim on me. It kind of scared me. But no, yeah, it's okay. If I don't want him to be traded. I like having Julio in Atlanta. I don't see what's the point of trading back right now. I think Atlanta needs to have this 4th pick. Who they go with is up in the air, honestly. And if they pick whoever they pick, it's fine with me. It's because they decided it's their best decision. So.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Julio, in my opinion, is at this point in his career, what is he offering? I mean, he just stays. He can't stay on the field, whether it's nagging injuries that he's having. And I love Julio Jones. I think that he is. I mean, it's hard to believe that he's at what he is his career. I mean, I remember when he was there with Roddy White, and Roddy White was kind of tutoring Julio Jones per se to become the next great Falcons receiver. But I'll say this, to me, Atlanta already has a number 1 receiver waiting in the wings in Calvin Ridley, who's shown the ability to be able to do that. Calvin Ridley, I'll say this first, his route running is unreal. Like his ability to run routes and be so crisp is great. So, I'll say it. I would love for Atlanta to trade Julio Jones. See what you can get at him, because if you hold on to him, he's just dead weight. And I don't want to. He's not a bad player, but if he continues the trend of being hurt and only playing in 9 to 10 games a year, and per se, then that hurts. You have Calvin Ridley waiting in the wings, and you have some other auxiliary type of players you can plug and play somewhere where you could feel like you could get by offensively, especially with the new scheme coming for Atlanta.
Yeah, I think it's time to trade Julio Jones. He's had a great Falcons career, but this is really a new era that the Falcons are embarking on. You change your head coach, you change your GM the same year. You're going in a totally new direction. Julio's on the wrong side of 30. He's owed a lot of money. He can still play. Like I said earlier, I think he's got 2 to 3 good years still left in him, and I think there's teams out there that would bite with a late first-round pick that need a receiver. Baltimore could be one of them. It just feels like that era is over. And if Matt Ryan wasn't making so much money, I think he would have been dealt also to a quarterback-hungry team. It's just the end of that era for the Falcons, and it's kind of hard to see for us because that's what we grew up with.
And I'll say this too. I just want to make this abundantly clear about this. You can't trade Matt Ryan because no one is going to take him. You can't release Matt Ryan because what are you just going to let almost $40 million just sit on your side? You at least got to find something out of that. If he's not hurt, then
might. There's always options trading him in the season. A team, a good team has their quarterback get injured and they need a stopgap and they're willing to fork over the money because they think they can win a Super Bowl. Yeah. That's still a possibility. But he's owed too much money. He's too old for a team to take him in the offseason.
And so the best course of action and the problem and the dilemma, we've talked all about this for Atlanta is, guys, the Falcons and Arthur Smith they're torn. I mean, it's already saying this torn. And I'm not saying don't go draft a quarterback. I mean, I'll tell you, if Mac Jones is available at 3, I'd rather have Mac Jones than Justin Fields, and I would. I'm sorry. I just think Mac Jones is going to be a fantastic NFL quarterback.
Because I feel like now it's safe to say if he slips to 4, the Falcons need to take him.
Yeah. So we'll end the conversation. We'll end the show with this because I'll tell you one thing. We're going to be fired up on this mock draft episode. It's going to be a ton of fun to talk about these things. If Atlanta has them to take Mac Jones at 4, let's go for it. Push the chips. Let him sit because to me, he could be exactly what Matt Ryan is. I mean, what is the difference? They're not terribly mobile quarterbacks. They're not going to go. I mean, they may pick up 15 yards, but they have high IQs. It's just something that I just think that it fits the system better. Justin Fields, you can't go wrong with taking him, but Mac Jones, to me, I'm telling you, I just like Mac Jones in the situation in Atlanta more than I like Justin Fields in the situation. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but guess what, guys? We're not the decision makers. We're just strictly talking. It's just strictly conversation. This is what the beauty of talking about all this stuff is. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how it goes with Atlanta. But I just want to make that abundantly clear. You can't get rid of Matt Ryan. You're gonna the problem Atlanta faces is that they're going to have to be able to task themselves and saying, how can we win with what we have? That's what I would say.
Maybe the Falcons could swindle some dumb GM to think, oh yeah, I'll pay the rest of Matt Ryan's $60+ million he's owed at 36. Sure.
That GM might be fired the next day.
Yeah, it'll take like a Nolan Arenado-esque trade.
Oh God.
Just incompetence by another team's front office.
And that GM had to resign the other day. So it's just fantastic. But listen, we appreciate everyone tuning in. Even the comments that are seemingly off the wall. We appreciate it as well. Parker, I appreciate you tuning in as well, man. Listen, tune in every Tuesday, Thursday. We got a fantastic podcast episode coming out tomorrow, and we're going to have another one coming out on Sunday as well. So catch us again on Thursday. We're going to run a full, all first round, 32 picks mock draft, maybe some trades included, and we're going to talk a little bit later. So thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it, and have a fantastic